Sometimes, I would say all the time. This has never failed me in my personal life, and when I share this with other people, they said this is the truth with them too. Every time I confess, which I just did, 2 days ago, Saturday? Well, yesterday, it was yesterday, Saturday. Every time I go to confession, I always pray to God to enlighten the confessor to give me the words he wants to convey to me. Because I know from experience that God speaks to the priest during confession. But if I don't pray this prayer to God, the priest doesn't always give me the guidance I'm looking for. So I go out of my way to ask God to directly work through the priest. Now, is it true that sometimes priests during confession can get it wrong? Yes. And this is why I think we should pray that God will give this grace to the priest through our prayer, and he does. He's never failed me with this prayer.
Okay, as usual, I actually enjoy reading your comments when I share videos like this. Whether it's staged or not is another question, but your comments have really helped me a lot in coming up with questions to ask the exorcists during my interview with them. And so I'd really love to hear what you think of this one.
Okay, it's 2:30 in the morning, and I'm hearing that same sound again downstairs, and my cats are in the room with me. I keep my door closed. So now I have to go find out what that sound is. Hello? 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 It's not funny. I swear to God, I'm losing my mind.
Police!
You really didn't see anything?
Yeah, there's nobody out there. I don't see any drug paraphernalia or food wrappers, clothes, nothing that would indicate any squatter of any kind. So I think you're okay. I think you're probably just dealing with a rodent.
Okay, but I heard footsteps running the length of the ceiling.
Yeah, sometimes raccoons, they can make a lot of noise. It sounds very deceiving. If you want, I can call the fire department. They can bring a ladder. We can get up there and look more, but I'm pretty sure you're just dealing with a rodent here. I'm sorry. Hold up. Yeah, copy. My advice, get some of those Ring cameras, set them up around the perimeter, and if there's any sort of commotion, they usually trigger, and then you can see. Yeah, but that's my advice.
Yeah.
You're the homeowner, right?
I am. Yeah, I am.
Okay, so you might want to bring in someone, check the roof perimeter as well. My partner's already gone around the house completely. Doesn't see anything, so. Sorry, wish we could be more help, but you did the right thing by calling.
As you know, there's been a lot going on lately, and I've been in a really bad place, but I decided to step back from social media so that I can focus on clearing out this bad energy.
And speaking of interviewing the exorcists, I'd like to share this very good advice from Father Martins with you for those who fear death.
I knew somebody at a parish to which I was assigned in my, years ago, who devout Christian, faithful Christian, but had a horrific fear of death, And, look, I'll say this. So death entered through sin, but Christ transformed it. So death is now, it's not the end, right? It's not an eternal separation between the soul and the body. It's now a birth into the next life. So he took something that was absolutely tragic and made it glorious, because I guarantee you this, boy, The moment that you're in heaven, God willing, we all will be. I mean, you, me, and everyone listening, God willing, God willing. The moment we're in heaven, we will forget everything painful that ever happened to us, because we will be so filled with glory, so filled with delight, so filled with God, so filled with the purpose for which we were made. We will be in a state of just utter tranquility, utter goodness, utter delight, utter beauty, that nothing that is not those things will have any place in us. But we've got to go through death to get there. And that's okay. It's okay. It might even be a little painful, but that's all temporary. It doesn't matter. Right? Christ has shown the way, and he'll be with us through it. So death entered through sin, but Christ transformed it. And how can we mitigate death? Like how can we mitigate its effects? How can we come to a place where we're no longer afraid of death? And I think the answer is clear. We come to that point by living faithfully every single day. Right? So what does that mean? Well, faithfully living out the sacraments, right? Faithful reception of the Eucharist, faithful uh, uh, reception of confession, to forgive others, to follow the commandments, to live generously, to cultivate a prayer life, to live with the identity of a son or daughter of God. So that's how we live faithfully every day. And what that does is it brings God's Spirit into us, such that he's not just around us, he's not hovering over us, he's inside us. And that transforms everything, transforms everything. So such that, then when you face your own death, it's not you facing death. It's Christ who has already conquered it. There with you, leading you through it. And that's all the difference in the world. Right? So death ought not to be something scary for us. It is a path for glorification. So those struggling with addictions, for example, with sin in their life, have faith in God. Addictions are tough to overcome. Tough. But God won't. God is ready to accept you, even if you die in your addictions. What he wants is a humble and contrite heart. What he wants is a heart reconciled to him. You might not be able to fully control or fully overcome your addictions by the time you die. You may not. Most people don't. Not every addiction, not every dysfunction that they have, if we can call, not every dysfunction is an addiction, properly speaking, but most people die with, the overwhelming amount of people die with some kind of dysfunction or some kind of unredeemed part with them. Like, what we have to die with is a clean soul. That's for sure. But your addictions may not be totally within your power to overcome. I know somebody who was born an addict. His mother was a drug user, heavy drug user, an alcohol user when she was pregnant. So his first experience of life outside the womb was going through drug withdrawal. So it was horrifically painful for him. And he carries the effects of that into life. He's now, he's a grown man, but he's an addict, and he struggles. But the first time that he tried drugs when he was in his early teens, my gosh, it woke up that addiction again. And that poor man. I'll tell you this. I have more confidence that God will be merciful to him than he will be to somebody like me who has no addiction. Because he was born already with such a profound handicap, and frankly, he merits God's love more than someone who doesn't have that. So like God is tender, God is merciful, God is on your side. He's on the sinner's side. He's not against the sinner. He's for the sinner. So cultivate the goodness that you can while you're alive. And that will suck all the venom out of your death, all the fear of your impending death.
When you think you've heard it all, The wildest stuff people say on the internet, you might have missed out on this one. And I mean, it's so wrong in so many ways. Listen to this young lady explains why you shouldn't mention God during a Ouija session, and I'll share the clip of the priest after this.
Why you should not mention God around the Ouija board. Let me put a quick disclaimer. So I'm not a paranormal expert by any means whatsoever. I am just a girl that likes scary things and spirits and all that other fun stuff. Like that, I'm nobody. Like, I am nobody professional. So take what I say with a grain of salt. This is just for entertainment purposes. It can interrupt the session or like freeze the session up, basically. When I say it can freeze up the board, basically, if you talk about God around the Ouija board, it shifts energies where it could just close that portal off, right? Where like the board, it'll freeze up, maybe kind of like a phone call when you are in a dead area and you're trying to talk to somebody and then you just can't hear them all of a sudden. Same thing with the Ouija board, like the energy shifts. So then like the board will freeze up, you just might not be able to talk to the spirit anymore. That's the less intense one of why you shouldn't. It just might make your session end. And another reason you don't want to is because it can offend or repel spirits. So usually when there is a mention of God, it can, especially in Christianity, it can be seen as like you're asking God for protection or intervention. So that could offend a spirit. They may not appreciate that and that, you know, you don't feel safe with them, so they'll get offended, or it could repel them. You mentioning God, that intervention, that like legitimately could repel the spirit away. So I guess that's a like, we're still not fully intense, but that's another reason why they say not to mention God around the Ouija board, is because you're kind of like letting the spirit know, like, I know this is risky. I'm not safe. I don't feel safe. I don't feel comfy. You're letting the spirit know that. So either they're going to just go away and be like, you know what, whatever, bye. Even though like your feelings are valid, they don't feel that way. They're offended, bye. That's like a less, again, I guess we're still on a less intense side of things. That's another reason though why you wouldn't want to mention God around the spirit board, is just you might just scare the spirit off or hurt their feelings, and you know, they're already dead. So like the biggest reason is because you can anger or provoke the spirits that way. So I've said it with the Ouija board, you're more than likely not getting good spirits. You are probably talking to either spirits that are like in purgatory, depending on your religious beliefs. Like Catholics, I know, believe in purgatory, which is basically like earth, but spirits are roaming around. So either purgatory, or you could potentially be talking to like demonic entities, right? Like, which is really not good spirits. And usually when spirits are in purgatory, they're like, not all the time, because purgatory is really like a deciding place, right? Like it's kind of like limbo essentially. So these spirits, like, they could be vengeful or angry. Maybe they were like unalived or something and they're vengeful and they're angry, right? So by mentioning God, especially to those that are in purgatory, they might get angry, because if you're in purgatory, it doesn't quite mean you've been shut out of heaven, but they're not there yet and they're trying to get there. So that mention might anger them. And of course, if you have a demonic entity you're talking to, clearly they're not going to be happy if you mention God. So that's like a big reason why you wouldn't want to mention like God. Is just whatever you're talking to, you might anger it, like especially if it's a more like powerful energy, whether it's like a spirit or like a demonic entity, you might anger it. So that's where you would not want to mention God, is you don't know what might happen.
I shared that quote at the start of this video, and many other exorcists have said essentially the same thing. And that's why I have issues with some Catholics who object to exorcists doing interviews and public appearances to teach, guide, and share lessons with us on social media. They think the exorcists are glamorizing the devil, when in reality you have people saying and believing this is harmless.
I am just a girl that likes scary things and spirits and all that other fun stuff.
And if you don't know this already, the hashtag Witch Talk on TikTok has so far accumulated 64 billion views, which basically means the videos on witchcraft on TikTok have been watched 64 billion times. So while we're on the subject of the spirit board, let me share you this very short clip of Father Carlos Martins, where he talked about what happened during one of his cases in a recent interview.
So Jeremy had a demon, and he's telling me how this demon came to be in him. When he was a child, when he was 7-8 years old, his brother brought home a Ouija board, and and some friends were playing with it, and they invited Jeremy to be part of it. And he doesn't remember much about the experience at all. Doesn't remember if there was much drama in the moment. However, what he does remember very clearly is that night when he was in his room and he was in bed, he turned off the lights, a figure came into his room, and he said the figure was so black that he made the rest of the room, which was in the dark, appear like it was in broad daylight. That's the amount of blackness was in this figure. This figure had the body of a man, but the head of a cat. And it came up to Jeremy, and it said to him, I will make you really strong, super strong, if you give me, and then it uttered a word that was nonsensical to Jeremy. He didn't know the meaning of it, but he said yes. And he said the cat did a jump in the air, or this figure with the head of a cat did a jump in the air and went inside him.
And regarding the occult and purgatory, which she mentioned and was terribly misinformed about, I'd like to share this clip of Msgr Rossetti with all of you.
In recent years, we've had a number of people come to us who are practicing the occult in some form, whether it's witchcraft, tarot cards, Ouija boards, all forms of divination. And some of them are doing it for decades. And by the grace of God, thanks be to Jesus, they're converted back to the faith, which is wonderful. The first thing we do is we have them go to confession and confess this very serious sin against the first commandment. But then what we find out in most cases is that there is still demonic presence in their lives, demonic, oftentimes torturing, demonic harassment. Some are even possessed. So, and it takes about 3 to 4 years of intense deliverance praying and living a virtuous life before they're mostly freed. So, what this shows us is there's a difference between forgiveness and purification. When you confess your sins are forgiven. Jesus forgives them. But there's a need for purification of this decades of sinful living, which is not really surprising in some ways. For example, as you may know, I'm a licensed psychologist, and I've worked with many people who have addictions. And for example, alcohol addictions. And someone may have been a practicing alcoholic for 20 years. He or she stops drinking, but then they are what we call a dry drunk. I mean, they have many attributes of the alcoholic. And so it takes years worth of detoxification, if you will, years worth of purification before the effects of this addiction are expunged. We Catholics know this distinction between purification and forgiveness. There are some who say, no, once your sins are forgiven, it's all over. Well, yeah, the sins are forgiven, it's all over, but again, that process of purification. And we, again, Catholics, understand this. And we believe, of course, that this life of ours is meant to be a purgation, to prepare us to live in God's presence. But there's a notion that we have which is kind of important. And that is that if we're not completely purged and then more is needed, that there's a place for us to what we call purgatory. And that's a source of God's mercy. Why? Because nothing impure can live in the presence of God. And so God is this infinite holiness. For example, you see this in exorcism. Demons are full of evil, of course, and they can't stand anything holy, even just a little bit of holy water, hold up a crucifix, anything that even whispers of God's holiness, they are tortured by. And it would be the same for us when we're not completely purified. If we were to be placed in God's presence and not perfectly, completely purified, that it would be a great torture. And so God has this merciful place that we call purgatory if needed. Now, hopefully we don't need it, but if it's there, if we do. So why is this important for us? It's important for us to know this because we this life is meant to be a purgation. And so, which is why the Gospel of Luke says, take up your cross daily and follow me. So we daily go to Mass, pray, say the rosary, go to confession, live a holy life. And day by day, we're slowly purged and prepared to live in God's presence. And Jesus does that for us through his sacraments, through his presence, through the many sources of grace that are offered to us. So I offer this to you to let you know why purgatory, while a concept that many people don't like, and I've had many people say to me, I don't believe in purgatory. No, purgatory is a source of God's mercy to prepare us to live in that overwhelming, infinite holiness of the Lord.
Well, thanks for taking a little bit of your time to be here with us. And as always, I hope all of you have learned a great deal from this one. And remember that, if there's any feedback or suggestion, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments below. And if you like what we do, please consider supporting us on Patreon or PayPal. And thank you so much to all of you who are supporting the works here on Patreon and PayPal.